Welcome to the D6 Family Ministry Podcast, a place where ideas, principles, and personalities come together to give you a ministry advantage that empowers the church and home.
I don't know anything more important in our society or in the kingdom of God than to help the church, help the family.
Discipleship is not an event, it's a way of life.
And one day it just hit me that discipleship at home was not about doing more. It was about inviting Christ into what we were already doing.
The goal of family ministry is not families sitting on the couch holding hands and singing Kumbaya. The ultimate goal is families that love God, love people, and make disciples of all peoples.
So that's why you're here. You're here to say 1 hour a week, as significant and as awesome as it is, we know that it's not enough and we want to be intentional with every hour.
You're listening to the D6 Podcast. Here are your hosts, Marianne Howard, Ron Hunter, and Josh Wooten.
You guys, I am so excited about today's interview. And so before we get into this, Dr. Luz, she brings up a lot of great, insightful takeaways for the church and resources. And to be honest with you, gives new perspective to how to reach the Latino community and connecting the church and home. And so before we get into this, we talked off the air about something. And so I want to ask you guys, do you guys ever, when you're driving, kind of play a game with traffic, or, how can you get beside this? I'm not talking about I Spy. I'm talking about like you're driving and you're making a game of it.
Other than we want to be first to get there? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yes. Like counting cars in the line as I approach a red light and going, okay, I can see 7 here, 4 here, and making my way, trying to get over in the right. Yes. All the time.
That's right. Or timing the lights, right, Josh?
Yes.
Yes. But we wouldn't admit that to anybody out loud. So, but no, there is one that I think is interesting in regard to something Dr. Luz says. And that is, I've often played the game, when you're driving down the interstate, and I'm not even sure they make these regularly on all the interstates, but they have the little reflectors that kind of stick up. They're like an inch high. They're about 6 inches by 6 inches. You see the reflectors. You know which ones I'm talking about, guys?
Oh, yeah. And then when you run over them, it's like thump,
thump, thump, thump, thump. That's right. Thump, 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 thump. The goal is when you change lanes, do it to where you don't hit one of those barriers. That's really harder than it thinks. One of those reflectors. That's harder than you realize.
You got to get it timed just right. It's like you said earlier, Ron, about the NASCAR crash, how they're trained to go in the gap. When there's a wreck, they're trained to look for the open spaces because you go where your eyes are focused. And for me, like when I remember training to get my motorcycle license, they always told us to look at the end of the curve. When you're going into a curve, you put your eyesight at the end of the curve when you're driving, because if you look at the ditch, you're going in the ditch. If you look at the pothole, you're going to hit the pothole if you focus on that. So, very true.
And I think that's the connection here. Dr. Luz says, don't look at the barriers. Don't look at what keeps you from doing it. Look at what you can do. And I really appreciated that wisdom from her.
Yeah, we're going to go into this interview and then we're going to discuss some of her brilliant ideas on the other side of this interview.
Attention all parents and teenagers. Do you want to strengthen your relationship and deepen your connection with each other? Dr. Richard Ross and Dr. Gus Reyes have created an online app that can help you do just that. Download 30 Days Parents and Teens today. By dedicating just 10 minutes a day for 30 days, you can experience a transformational journey with your teenager that will bring you closer than ever before. You'll learn practical skills and strategies for communicating effectively, resolving conflicts, and understanding each other's perspectives. By connecting your hearts and minds during this 30-day experience, you'll build a stronger and more loving relationship that will last a lifetime. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to strengthen your bond with your teenager. The 30 Days Parents and Teens app is available in both English and Spanish. Download today and start your journey towards deeper connection and understanding.
Right now, I have the pleasure of being joined by Dr. Luz Galvez de Figueroa. Dr. Luz founded the International Entre Niños Ministry. With her doctorate from Bethel Seminary, she is an influential Latino voice for children's and family ministry. She has served as children's pastor, speaker, writer, and professor. Luz and her husband Jose reside in Vancouver, British Columbia, and have 2 married children, the sweetest granddaughters, and a newborn grandson. Dr. Luz, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here with D6.
Well, before we even start, I want to say congratulations on your doctorate in the last year. That is very incredible.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited that I finished a few years, so it's great.
And what was your focus for your doctorate?
Theology and leadership.
Wow. Very, very cool. Well, today we're talking about current trends and resources for Latino families. And before we started this off mic, I told you how much this means to me personally, because my church has gone from a congregation that was primarily 99% Caucasian to now being about a third Hispanic. So I'm looking forward to learning from you. Now, I know here in your breakout at the D6 conference, you've talked about current trends for Latino families. Can you share some of those trends with our listeners?
Yes, well, there are a few. And one is, of course, the churches and ministries are really focusing on to the new generation. That has been a very low-key ministry in the churches, more entertaining than anything. So churches were looking for more finding fun things for kids while the adults were being ministered to. But God is doing an amazing job in the Latino churches where they're looking for resources and training. But more specifically, I'm more excited that churches are looking for connections between the church and the home and the Latino families.
Well, you mentioned resources there, and I want to stay there just for a second. What are some of the best resources out there right now that can help Latino families, or maybe could help churches like mine reach Latino families?
Yes, I think the great resources are the ones that have English and a great resource, the same resource, but well translated, well written, and illustrative is resources in Spanish. So I want to mention 2. Can I mention 2?
Yes, please.
Sure. The infographic Bible. And now the Spanish version is the same as the English version. So there's the infographic Bible 1, 2, and 3 is the activities, and the new one is about Jesus. And these resources, you can have them the same in English, the same in Spanish. And you can use them at church and you can use them at home. I'm always talking about those. I'm doing actually a webinar on those resources. So it's I'm really excited. The other one is group publishing is launched the VBS resource. So it's the same for the English and the same in Spanish. And it's good quality, good resources that churches that have children or families that speak only Spanish, but also have children that speak English. So you can use both. I really love those resources.
Now, I'm curious about how you would suggest if a church has a congregation where they have some that speak English, some that speak Spanish, and maybe that doesn't cross over, maybe they're not bilingual. How would you suggest churches minister and use those resources when you have 2 different languages being spoken, especially among like the children?
Right. Well, generally in the Spanish churches, the adults or the parents, first generation, speak Spanish and they feel comfortable with Spanish, and the children are learning English in the schools. And so churches have to debate what do they do, and many churches in the U.S. Do the kids ministry in English. So it's great when you have a resource that is both English and Spanish, and some families say, no, we want this to be in Spanish, and they want to do that in Spanish at home, then they can have those resources too. And so it's very much a choice, especially for the next generation.
Well, when it comes to discipleship, which I know that's something you're passionate about, what do you see as being the biggest need in the Latino community?
Yes, connecting with the families, connecting with the parents. And we did a research in January this year with Bethel Seminary and Entre Niños. And we did a survey for families, for parents, and the same survey for children's ministry leaders. And it's the first one of its kind that we know. Okay, and I just want to mention 3 outcomes. Can I mention 3? We have many, but just to summarize. So we had the question of, for example, how do you associate the parents in the spiritual formation of the children? This is a question for the children's leaders. And they responded, we provide intergenerational events. That was the highlight. But when we asked the parents, they said, are you looking for discipleship and from the church? How do you want to connect with the church? And they say they're looking for quality children's programs, prompts for how to have quality conversation or spiritual conversation, and also church-based intergenerational activities. So parents are looking for resources, are looking for training and resources. The second one is what topics are you most interested for the church to do? For children's leaders, they said the parents are looking for coaching. And they need help in how to bring discipleship at home. Well, when we asked the parents, they said, well, we need all these different things. We need devotionals for families. We need how to pray with children and with children. We need how to have intentional conversations. And we do need coaching for the discipleship of the children. And the last one I want to mention just now, what are the barriers that you're facing right now? For the children's leaders, we asked them, what do you think the parents, what are the barriers that they have right now? And they say lack of connection with the church. The churches and the families are not connected. But when we asked the parents, they said too many demands of our times. We're too busy working 1-2 jobs, and it's hard to focus and to take time for discipleship with children, because in their mind they think we have to have a devotional time. Well, when we can instruct them and how we can help them to think integrated into our daily activities, and if we are able to maybe connect with the parents that way, give them tools and training, and hey, you don't have to have a theology degree. You can live your life as Deuteronomy 6, right? In everything you do.
That's really good. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue talking about this topic.
The D6 Conference is thrilled to present a lineup of more than 70 experts specializing in family ministry who are ready to inspire, challenge, and equip you with strategies for generational discipleship. Guided by the teachings of Deuteronomy 6, which calls for a love for God and a full-hearted engagement with His Word and impressing His Word on the hearts of families, the D6 Conference is meticulously crafted to instruct, empower, and inspire ministry leaders, parents, pastors, and volunteers to embody the vision and mission laid out in this sacred text. This event stands as a premier family ministry conference, offering invaluable opportunity for your entire team to be inspired, engage in idea exchanges, and foster new relationships with like-minded church leaders. With the choice of breakout sessions led by leading voices in family ministry, you're guaranteed to walk away equipped with practical tools and resources that will prove instrumental in your ministry. Whether in Orlando or Seattle, we invite you in 2024 to be a part of this transformative conversation and explore how you can adopt an all-inclusive approach to discipleship for both your church and your home. Don't miss out on this chance to elevate your discipleship approach. Register now at d6conference.com.
We are back, and we're talking about current trends and resources for Latino families. Now, before the break, you had mentioned some barriers that families are facing. I'm curious, what is an element of ministering to Latinos that people often overlook, especially people who are trying to maybe start a new Latino ministry? What is something they might overlook and miss when they're doing that?
Yes, first of all, that the Latino culture is not defined by the language. We speak English and Spanish. Maybe we have an accent like me, but
I have an accent too.
And so we do have, that's not the main factor. I will say let's focus in that, that our goal is to erase cultural difference. It's not to erase cultural differences, but rather to seek ways to honor the presence of God in these differences. So when I do this teaching and in this workshop, I'm going to speak about the importance of having the central point to have the gospel, the Bible. So if we only want to connect with other cultures and say you and me in different cultures, if we just do that, then we're not going to reach a common ground. I think the common ground has to be the Bible, has to be the gospel. So that's the common, the connection, and that we need to seek for.
Now, I want to ask this just personally on my behalf, but I was raised in an English-speaking church. Things have changed a lot since I was a kid. Now, many of the people I go to speak Spanish, or they're bilingual. My neighbors speak Spanish. And I'm wondering, what is something that would be helpful for me to know about the Latino community that could help me minister to them?
Yeah, for sure. It's first of all, avoid cultural generalizations. And so when you have a group of Latino leaders, do you see Puerto Ricans, Mexican, Chileans, or do you see people in need of God and in need of relationships and friends that I can just connect with? The other one is look for commonalities. What does it look like? How can we connect? So in those terms, not looking for, okay, how different we are or what do you like and I don't like. Look for commonalities. Maybe appreciating the different cultures, knowing that there's something about God in the other culture. So go into a posture of learning about the other culture, not only about their ways of living, cultural differences or cultural activities or families, but look what is God doing in the other person. And I really like this quote from Sun Chan Ron. He says, our goal is not to erase cultural differences, but rather to seek ways to honor the presence of God in different cultures. Isn't that great?
That is great. Well, I want to wrap up kind of talking about that because sometimes when we're ministering to multiple cultures, we may call them barriers. They may not be barriers. They're just some differences.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to church leaders who have both English and Spanish speaking people in their churches, or maybe they have English, Spanish, French, German, just multiple cultures? What's some advice you could give to those leaders on how to lead their churches well?
That's a good point. That I think the first of all is the language of love. The language of love in looking into the other as the other person, but in how can I love this person? What can I learn from this person? And how can we connect with the gospel in the center, and knowing that, we're going to have differences, we're going to speak differently, we're going to eat differently, we're going to connect differently, but what is that? It brings us together, and the gospel. Look for, I think it's so good to remember the value of stories. The stories of knowing what is your life growing up. What was life growing up in your home? And rather than saying in your country or in your place, how did you grow up? I grew up this way, and start connecting through the value of stories. Respect limitations and demonstrate tolerance. Limitations, I mean that, for example, a children's leader, a preacher, or someone in our churches here in North America, if you haven't experienced poverty, maybe avoid talking about poverty, because maybe somebody in the congregation has really, lived through that. And so maybe don't just know your limitations.
Well, Dr. Luz, thank you so much for sharing this. I know this has been helpful for me personally, and I'm going to take a lot of this back to my own church, but I know so many of our listeners they're going through this too. And it's a beautiful thing to see the kingdom of God. We look different. We may talk different, but we are children of God. So
Yes.
thank you so much for sharing this with us today.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I look forward to learning more about what is D6, and I will invite others to come and visit Entre Niños and learn about the resources there for in English and in Spanish.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, it's such an eye-opening perspective from her, and one of the things that comes to mind, a lot of the challenges that are faced in the Latino community and families are the exact same. The culture has not a lot to do with the challenges that we face as parents, and I like how she said that culture is not defined by language.
Right.
And the goal is to celebrate God in the midst of the differences of our cultures. And, the fact that she talked about, connecting with the kids spiritually and how it empowered discipleship from parents. And, we talked off air, about a product that D6 has that is available in Spanish.
That's right. Oh, the 30 Days app. Luz, she did list off a couple of resources to help Latino communities with passing down faith and equipping families for spiritual conversations. The 30 Days app, I want to encourage you to take a look at the 30 Days app. You can go to any app store and look up 30 Days app. It'll be kind of a blue square that says 30 days. We have a Spanish version of that, and that's connecting with the heart of your teenager. And it's got questions for the teenager and it's got questions for the parent. You set aside specific intentional time for 30 days to connect with the heart of your teenager and the heart of the parent. It's a both and. It's not one-sided. And you're surprised by those questions, so you can give transparent and honest answers. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I've done this with both my children, and it has profoundly strengthened the relational equity needed through these difficult years. So I just want to encourage you. We now have the Spanish version of the 30 Days app, and that would be an awesome tool to kind of help even answer some of the questions and the barriers that Dr. Luz brought up. Of they need spiritual connections. They need resources to help them have spiritual conversations. And so that app will help you do that.
And to borrow language from Ron Deal from last time, if your son or daughter who you want to have connections with on this 30-day experience, we have it to where they can be working on 2 totally separate devices while they're in the other home. So don't worry about that. You can still pick that up and make that happen. Tremendous, tremendous experience. We did it with our kids. Again, thumbs up from us as well.
And I just want to say thank you to Dr. Luz and just her perspective and her passion. And, we do need to continue to be aware of our church communities and look at our congregation and say, you know what does our Latino community look like in our congregations, and how can we resource them? As we've said in a previous episode, which I want to hold on to as a sticky note thing, how are we giving maps to continue to connect the church and the home? And so that's what we're left with. We're praying for you. We are so excited about one of our favorite friends, Arlene Pelicane, coming next week to equip grandparents with technology. So we will talk to you next week. Until then, we're praying for you, and we hope you have an amazing week.
You've been listening to the D6 Podcast. You can learn more about D6 at d6family.com.